Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Tenacious J. I am so honored to have my friend, Jonathan B. Smith, best-selling author, on my show today. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Janelle.
It is so nice to have you on today.
So glad to see you. It's been a long time.
It has been. And just so that the crowd wants to know, how the heck did I pull this such a great guest? Jonathan was an EOS consultant for us. So Entrepreneurial Operating System consultant for a business I used to work for called ABC Packaging back in the day. And Jonathan brought all his nuggets into our business and really helped us kind of like get ourselves organized. And so we've just stayed in touch ever since. So I do appreciate you being on because you are big time now.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So guys, Jonathan wrote best-selling book, Fight Less, Win More. It's out now. You got to get your book, your copy if you haven't received it yet. And it is I don't want to say a spin-off, but Jonathan, would you say it's a tactical handbook on negotiating skills?
So what we call it is, there's a book called Never Split the Difference. My friend Chris Voss wrote that book. It sold 5 million copies. If you want to know about negotiation, that's where you start. And then what we wrote is the missing manual for Never Split the Difference. So Chris was the former lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. I am not a hostage negotiator. I'm an entrepreneur and just a regular person like you. And what I wanted to do was make the skills available to everyone. So we wrote this missing manual that we call Fight Less, Win More. And I did it with my co-author, Derek Gaunt, who is a former hostage negotiator.
Yeah, guys. So when you think your life is stressful, read this so you get nice. This to me is like a tactical guide on breathing, taking a breath before your next move. But let's start at the way beginning, Jonathan. So you dedicated this book to your grandparents for teaching you to stay curious. So at what point in your life did you realize that this was their message to you?
I had a very close relationship with my grandfather and my grandmother. And one of the things my grandfather taught me, he said during the war, he used to sleep in basically like a sewer pipe, because then it was less likely that he was going to get hit by a bomb. And he taught me how to meditate when I was like 4 years old on the couch.
Your bedtime stories. Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe that's what happened to me. But so he taught me that. And forever, we worked on mindfulness. And my grandmother at 4 years old would let me go to her house and carry an axe and have a knife and shoot bow and arrow. And I would build houses with her every summer. I was just labor on the construction team, but we were friends forever. And she was the forewoman, or the superintendent on the job, and we're super close. And so I dedicated it to them.
That's such a strong foundation. And your not tagline, but every sign up is stay curious. And so you are an expert EOS implementer. You're a negotiations instructor and coach with the Black Swan Group. People, if you don't know, you're living under a rock. And now best-selling author, Fight Less, Win More. Was a thirst for staying curious kind of what drew you to every next step in your career?
I think the stay curious has sort of evolved. So to the extent that you can really listen to other people, and if they feel heard, you're much more likely to be able to make a deal with them. People are 6 times more likely to make a deal with someone that they like. So, and it starts with just listening.
Right. Absolutely. Which is not the easiest to do in a high stake negotiation, even when it's that high stakes negotiation is sitting on the other side of a real estate table where a lot of my audience is. So let's talk about the book, Fight Less, Win More. It is the guide to negotiation skills, starting with listening. What is the one tool, because there are many in the book, guys, you got to get it, that you feel really helps in a high stakes situation when you're negotiating? What's the one skill that you think really is hard, something that you have to practice, and is the most successful in what you're trying to do?
One skill. That's a challenging question, because the reality is learning these skills is like learning another language. The best way to do it is by immersion. Like you have to be okay with getting it wrong. The hardest part is people won't start because they're like, but I might get it wrong. Okay, well, you're going to get it wrong. And that's why we in this country, most of us don't speak a second language because of the way we teach it in high school. We're all afraid to get it wrong. So the reality is probably the hardest skill is to listen. That sounds really simple, but the hardest skill is, can you be disciplined around listening, around the process of literally saying, there's a reason that person said something. And now let me stop pushing my agenda and let me just slow this down and figure out why they just made that comment. So we have 5 levels of listening. So if the 5 levels are listening for the gist, I'm on the phone, Janelle, you come in, you start to talk to me and I'm like, That's called listening for the gist. I'm not listening. You don't think I'm listening. Who are we fooling?
Right.
Listening to hijack. What does hijack mean? Listening to hijack means like, we're in a meeting, someone else's hand is up, you're talking. As soon as you stop talking or take a breath, boom, they jump in and take the conversation somewhere else. Don't even acknowledge the fact of what you said. You don't feel heard. So neither of those forms of listening work. 3rd level, logic, listening for logic. There is a reason someone just told you something.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down and stay curious. Slow down and stay curious. So listening for logic and emotion. Can you listen to what they're saying and understand what their emotion is? What are the underlying emotions?
Mm-hmm.
And then the 5th one, which is the hardest, listening for their point of view. So regardless of whether you agree with their point of view or not, can you listen and actually understand where they're coming from and have them feel heard that you actually understand their point of view? So I will be in meetings, and even myself as a trained negotiator fall back into listening to hijack. And I'll be
Easily.
And you have to accept the fact that you're going to be triggered and be okay with it, and then just debrief and go like, okay, I'm going to be more disciplined. It's kind of like doing yoga. It's like doing martial arts. It's like doing anything that's hard. You need to just be kind to yourself. And then just next time, do better.
Jonathan, I am laughing because reading your book, we're sitting in a sales meeting. And every time, you're listening, but you're at the level 2, you want to hijack. I take a breath. My armpits are sweating because I want to jump in. And I'm like, shut up. Listen to why they're saying, try to understand, try to get to the reason of why they're saying what they're saying. It is very hard to listen very intensely. And in return, what's very difficult is another tool of dynamic silence. Say your point, ask your question, and shut up.
Yeah, we say don't step on your label.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so if I drop the label, and the label to us is, we say it seems like, it sounds like, it feels like, it looks like. Mm-hmm. Whatever the dynamic is that your intuition is telling you, and then be quiet. And I actually, just like in transcendental meditation, I will use a mantra, and I'll just say to myself, dynamic silence, dynamic silence. It's like counting sheep. Dynamic silence, dynamic silence, dynamic silence. Just wait for them to respond. The only time that you will interrupt that silence is if it appears that you've offended that person and you need to apologize for what you've said.
Right.
But otherwise, let it soak in.
So when you're telling yourself dynamic silence, can you hear what they're saying? Can you understand what they're saying? I mean, because in my head, I'm like, don't talk, dumb A, don't talk. And I'm like, am I listening? Because I'm trying not to talk. Is that a practice skill?
Yeah, it's just a practice skill. The dynamic silence is literally, I just say it and I still listen to them, but I'm like, okay, I know I want to talk, but this is going to keep my lips zipped.
It's hard. It's another tool. When I tried labeling something, this is great, Jonathan. So you guys, you got to try it. So when you say fail, you got to try it and you'll fail. I'll give you a quick example. And this is just like, oh God, talking to a realtor, something happened. It was missed. And he was talking about trying to get, money back and all this. And at one point I said, man, it really sounds like you're in a difficult place with your client. And he's like, yeah, no, bleep, moron. Like, I just used it wrong. It wasn't right. And it is like, it was a label that it just was so obvious it wasn't right. So it's hard. It's hard to use the tools, but I think like you said, it's the more you practice, it become more natural. right?
Yeah, so let's walk through that case because it's interesting. When you're new to it, you're gonna label the presenting dynamic.
Yeah.
And that presenting dynamic is like, yeah, he's in a bad spot with his clients. He's like, uh-huh.
Duh.
The latent dynamic is, and you could say something crazy like, it seems like you're gonna go look for a new title company. Like, and you'll be like, really? Seems like you're really frustrated with us, or it seems like you think we don't have our shit together. Like,
Right.
and that would actually get him to talk better about what's happening and what his feeling is and where he actually is going.
So you suggest like an accusation type of
You just have to label the latent dynamic. Like, what was really going on for him?
right.
It sounds like you're afraid of losing your client. It sounds like you're going to lose face with your client if you don't get a credit.
Yeah.
Something like that, as opposed to, it sounds like you're in a bad spot with your client. Like, can you say something? And a lot of times it's something that you don't want to say. You're like,
Right.
I've been taught to hide all that.
Right.
I'm like, it's there anyway. You might as well label it. And the interesting thing is, if you get it wrong, the urge to correct is irresistible. They'll just tell you got it wrong. And if you got it right, they'll just say that's right.
Right. Absolutely. I love you guys got to read this book because everything Jonathan says is straight from the book. It's awesome. Okay. Now, I know this might be difficult, but in one sentence, how would you define tactical empathy?
So you have intuition about something, whatever's going on. Your spidey senses are telling you something's going on. And then what we do is we verbalize that. So intuition plus verbalization, it's almost like reading someone's mind. So you literally will just say, my gut, is telling me something. My caveman brain is telling me something. I'm going to verbalize it. It's like verbal EQ. It's like verbalizing EQ.
Right.
And it's not natural. It's like speaking another language. But if you do it, people then feel heard.
Right. It could go towards any relationship, not just business.
Oh, well, that's the thing. We say negotiations are everywhere. Anytime I want or I need is in your head or your counterpart's head, you're in a negotiation. Your kid doesn't want to go to bed. I had someone whose kid didn't want to eat anything that was green. An argument with your spouse, an argument with your neighbor, a disagreement at church, something at work, salary negotiation. It's all a negotiation. If you want an extra shot of espresso at Starbucks, it's a negotiation.
Right. You're right. And it's not manipulation. It's picking up on this. It's picking up on the cues from the person you want something from. Correct?
Yeah, we just say you have to use the skill for good and not for evil. So
That's true.
we don't use it. We don't use it for manipulation. Actually, we say people can smell intent.
You're
So
right.
if your intent is to manipulate, people will smell it.
Right.
If your intent is to genuinely listen to them, people will then say, oh my God, Janelle's the most interesting person in the room. And all you did was listen to them. Of course.
I mean, duh. No, right. Of course. No, you're right. You're right. Okay. So this whole podcast, a lot of the primary audience are realtors, people in title lending. That's my parents, my mom and dad, they're watching today. And you talk about the three types of negotiators. Accommodator, I met an accommodator, analyst, and also, oh my gosh, asserter. So assertive, thank you. It actually reminded me, since the negotiation, I was thinking of personality styles, and I'm like, there's not an amiable, but I guess you could tie that into an accommodator. I don't know, different thing. Anyways, so there are three major negotiation topics that realtors face on the daily. Emotional clients, and this whole process of buying and selling real estate is extremely emotional. And if a realtor can manage and learn these skills, they'll level up their business by cooling down their clients. Inspection, negotiations, and repairs, and also price adjustments. So if I was to ask you to kind of break them all down, we'll go through one first. I'm an accommodator, okay? And I'm also very an emotional person. How would you handle, let's say I'm a seller who just really overvalues my house and is not willing to take any advice from me as the consultant, the real estate listing agent? How would you approach that type of person?
So we'll just start with emotions first. And we say emotions are the single biggest driver of human behavior and decision making. So you just need to understand these deals are emotional, not logical in many
Agreed.
cases.
Mm-hmm.
So the accommodator just wants to be friends with everybody. So they're like want to be friends, and they almost never get to the point where they don't want to. They're sort of avoiding conflict all along the way. And what you need to do first and foremost is we say you're 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind. If any negotiator type is in a negative frame of mind, they are not going to make good decisions. So the first and foremost is for you to get them to feel heard and get them in a positive frame of mind. So
Perfect.
you need to first understand, like, it seems like there's a reason that you came up with whatever price you came up with in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, well, I'm going to retire and I need this much money in the bank. And, my neighbor's house sold for the same amount of money, or, it's going to cost me XYZ to move. Like you gotta sort of tamp down the level of emotion. So somehow you have to get the information from them about why they're stuck on that number.
Yes.
And so that's one thing I would start with. If we lower their emotion,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I would use a calibrated question, when you hired me, what did you expect? What did you expect the outcome to be, and what was my role in the process? And get them to provide you implementation of what they expected.
Right.
Well, I expected you to give me the comps and tell me what the price was and negotiate the deal and make sure the deal closed, and I want it done in 2 weeks. And I don't want to go back and forth, and we don't want to have multiple offers, or I want someone to bid above what my ask is, whatever the unreasonable things they are. But get that all on the table. Mm-hmm. Once you have that on the table and they're in a positive frame of mind, you're much more likely to be able to have a rational conversation about how you're going to get the deal closed.
I love that, Jonathan. And it's also tempering your own emotions when people have any objection in real estate sometimes feels very combative. So to read the emotion, I think that's a great strategy. The next one, let's say you're dealing with an analytical, so they're data driven, and we're working with inspection and ROC, or like negotiations on inspection report. How would you handle, let's say a buyer's asking for everything and a seller feels blindsided. They don't want to compromise. They already compromised on price. How would you handle this with an analytical person?
So once again, you need to start with something. You could start with just labeling their emotion. You probably feel completely blindsided. Now with an analyst, you have to be quiet. You have to give them time to think. They're thinking in their head all these thoughts. They already had the money in the bank account. They probably reconcile their checkbook every month.
Right.
I don't know that everyone does anymore, but
I'm 90. I do. Anyway, go ahead.
But the idea is you have to give them time to think. You have to actually get them to understand, what the process typically looks like. Also, so did you walk into a house where someone had literally done all the deferred maintenance, and the buyer is being completely unreasonable and chiseling the seller? At that point, we could, logically say, yeah, we're not going to give in, or we'll give in on like 2 little things. But, I guess you sort of need to get that person needs to understand logically how things work and what to expect. They like order.
Correct. And information. So come prepared. Yeah.
Yep. And spend the time to let them feel heard. And they may say, I put a generator in, I just put a new roof in, I have new windows, and now they're nitpicking me over like there's a nick in the wall. Like, or is it that they haven't put any money in the house for 30 years and there really are some defects that the house wasn't priced according to the fact that there's some kind of leak or what have you.
I think what I took away from what you said and what's resonating most with me being in the field is give them time to process. Give them time to think about what you discussed so they can compute it, you know? And I think that's a lost art when it comes to working with analytical people.
Yeah, you have to, like, one of the things with any negotiator type is we want to remove ourselves as a threat.
Yeah.
And as a realtor, you only get paid when you actually sell the house.
Right.
So, and I don't know what your pipeline looks like, but sometimes you get anxious about wanting to get a deal done because you have to pay your mortgage this month. But really, you need to slow things down. You need for them to feel heard. If they feel heard and cared for and they understand the process, they're much more likely to move forward. Again, 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind.
I love it. And I love the reference you made at the beginning of the book about meeting people on their side of the street. You're not asking them to come across your street. You got to meet them where they're at. And that's what I picked up from. And I feel that's very helpful. Well, in any of these types of situations, you got to meet them where they're at.
100%. That's right.
That's right. Okay. Assertive. Here's the last one, price adjustments. So with the market, prices have gone up substantially across the board. In Ohio, it's at least 6 to 10%. Okay. So everybody thinks that they're going to get let's say $500,000 for a $200,000 bungalow. Working with an assertive person, how would you handle maybe renegotiating a price or trying to have the sellers adjust their expectations based on market data?
So the assertive wants to feel heard. Time is money. The worst thing to do with an assertive is interrupt them when they're talking. That'll completely blow the deal with them. So if you're going to go do a BPO for an assertive, what you want to walk in is, and the BPO is less than the 500,000 that they're expecting, you have to start with an accusations audit. You're probably going to think that I'm lowballing you. You're probably going to think I don't appreciate all the time, sweat, and effort you put into the house. You probably don't appreciate how special. You probably don't think I appreciate how special this house is. You've got to set them up with all the negative things that they're going to be thinking about when you present your house is worth 450, not 500, for whatever reason. And so now when you tell them your house is, you bought your house for 200, it's worth 450, and at 450 it's going to trade in 2 weeks instead of lagging on the market at 500, and then we're going to do 3 series of price adjustments and get 425. I think we can get 450 if we price it here, and I think it'll trade at that number. So I'd start with an accusations audit. So
in your book, you mentioned the accusations audit is, again, you're saying, start with like the most negative things they're thinking of.
In their head, literally the stuff in their head.
How many do you keep saying it until they say, okay, stop? How do you make it so it doesn't sound like almost ridiculous?
You could do as many as 10. And you could, what we say is take the best one and make it last. So whatever the most obvious, whatever the clearest one is, you make that last. Now, if you walk in and you so an accusation audit starts with, you may think, and you're basically saying, I think of it as like negative emotion canceling. They have negative emotions. So their negative emotions are, you probably think I'm another realtor just trying to sling a deal through the process or whatever they think. But all those negative emotions, you want to write them down. And then you want to say them. It's very, very, very difficult to do this at first. We say you have to do low stakes practice before you do high stakes practice. So the idea is you're going to say all these things. And at some point you may say 4 things like, no, I trust you. So-and-so referred you. I'm okay. Just tell me what the number is. Like an assertive is going to say, I had some friends on Wall Street when their boss would come in and explain to them all the reasons that whatever their bonus number was going to be different than they expected. They would just, instead of having their boss tell them all the reasons, they would just say number. Just give me the number. Like an assertive is going to be like, just give me the number. Right. So after 4 accusations audits, they probably say, just give me the number.
Right. Enough. Yeah.
Yeah, enough. But you have to have enough there, because what happens is if you use the accusations on it, it takes those negative emotions off the table. You've already said, this is how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying you might, you probably, you may think, but you're giving them the option of saying, that's right, I do feel that way.
Right. It's like handling it's bringing up objections before they can even bring them up. And it's bringing the defense down a bit. Yeah.
It takes the negative emotions off the table. So
Yeah.
like whatever the objections that people normally would have with whatever scenario you're talking about, it works because they're like, oh my gosh, they understand me. And the truth is, there's only 5 to 10 negative things that every single seller or buyer has. You guys already know. You're the experts in selling real estate.
Right. Right. There's one more thing that I think a lot of realtors don't do. And you mentioned it's kind of like a scarcity mindset if they don't have a pipeline and they're hurrying to get their mortgage paid because they got to close this to get their commission. A lot of realtors are afraid to fire clients or to say no. And I know there are different types of no's till you finally say no. How would using the ways of saying no, how could you fire a client? Like if somebody is just leading you on, stringing you around, you find them a perfect house and they keep making excuse after excuse of excuse, and it just, it doesn't fit your vibe, your ideal client profile. How and when do you start that process of saying, I'm done?
Well, so there's a marketer named Joe Polish. He has something called 2 different kinds of clients. One's easy, lucrative, and fun.
An elf.
An elf. And the other is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. A half.
Yeah.
So you guys all know your elves and your halves.
Yeah.
So there's really like 2 ways to do this. One is after repeated bad behavior, the person that you've shown the perfect house to 4 or 5 times, and you think that they just want to, waste every nice Saturday in the spring with you. You say something like this: when you repeatedly turn down, houses in your buy box, whatever you guys would say, it makes me feel like I'm wasting my time. And as a result, I'm not sure I can be your realtor anymore. Right? That's an iMessage. It's an assertive move. You would only use it after repeated bad behavior, like 2, 3 times. It's hard. It's in the book. And the key, so it's when whatever the behavior is, it makes me feel, and as a result, there's got to be fear of loss. So you have to have fear of loss there. And the other is we have 4 phases of no. So literally we'd say, I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me. Yeah, you're going to be disappointed. No. How am I supposed to do that? And then the final no is like, no, I'm not doing that. And it's okay if you get rid of a client who's going to waste all your good Saturdays because someone else wants to buy a house and they're an elf.
Right, and they're an elf. Well, I'm laughing twofold. Like I have a lot of smiles because what you say is, when I feel like I tried that with my second son, and he actually got quiet. Believe it. So talk about like just practicing on the side, low stakes practice. It does work. Get to the point where you've just had enough, and it has a nice rhythm, and it is an actual process of actual words you have to say. So if you practice it, I think it'll really resonate when you're sitting in a class from a client. Use it on your kid, use it on your dog. But I really
use it when you get Starbucks. Use it when you go to a hotel and you want an upgrade.
Right.
Like all of these skills, we would say, those are low stakes. What's the worst thing that happens if you don't get the upgrade? You still get a room. Mm-hmm. You just don't get the room with, I don't know, the hot tub or whatever.
With the heart-shaped hot tub. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Jonathan, I don't want to take much more of your time, as I am so blessed and so grateful that you spent all this time with me. How can we get the book? Where can they buy it?
The book's on Amazon. Bite Less, Win More. Pretty easy to find there. My website is Stay Curious, JBS. So staycuriousjbs.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jonathan. You guys, you have to get this book is transformative. And I actually have the audiobook and Jonathan talks, and I love his voice because I've known him forever. But anyways, thank you again. All right, guys, this is Tenacious J. Let's sell a home together. Bye-bye. Thank you.